The real force of Europe lies in the linguistic variety that marks the different European populations. Thus, the importance of multilingualism is increasingly highlighted. Multilingualism is the use of more than one language by an individual, and a multilingual society is mainly made up of these people. The EU is committed to promoting working or study abroad all official languages, encouraging all citizens to learn European languages in order to foster a broader comprehension among the different communities and unify the diversities. In the pursuance of this purpose, it is necessary to start from the foundations for the future of Europe, that is to say, schools. In the schools, in fact, the use of innovative methods of learning languages would increase the number of multilingual people. Among these methods, we have learning through music, intercomprehension, and didactic games. Let's not forget the importance of the practical use of a language on which the CLT method relies. Several psychologists, among whom Jerome Bruner and Lev Semenovich Vygotsky, have highlighted the importance of an acquisition aimed at stimulating the curiosity and pleasure of the student. This is the only way to allow a lifelong learning. Teachers know that there is no grasping without motivation, and music, songs, and the karaoke are the most suitable instruments that can create pleasure and amusement in the student. According to some psychologists, a skill is learned and mastered when the action involves from the left to the right part of the brain, and a better instrument for this purpose is music, since it includes emotion and the language, ensuring this way an exchange between the rational and irrational. Thus, rhythm, melody, and the language allow the direct storing of information in the long-term memory. If we happen to teach a foreign language to little children by using this method, we suggested the fun songs method of Charles Gouja. This method is based on songs which include very simple words and a catchy melody with a simple arrangement and a snappy rhythm. This kind of rhythm facilitates the acquisition of intonation and pronunciation, since both sides of the brain start to function at the same time, and the different acquisition styles and the musical and emotional intelligence become one. Let's not forget, furthermore, that the children love singing and miming. Intercomprehension is an effective pedagogic means that relies on the degree of linguistic kinship in order to allow the individual to understand another language without learning it, but making reference to the language he or she already possesses. Europe boasts three large language families, that is to say Romance, Germanic, Slavic, and other isolated languages like Finn and Basque. The systematic nature is an important element for intercomprehension. It is possible to note, for example, that the double consonant "t" is often equivalent to "it" in French and to "ch" in Spanish. Another important element is that of interlexemes, that is to say words which slightly change from one language to another. These are mainly terms of Greek and Latin origins. The pupil compares continuously the linguistic schemes of the languages that he or she knows, and of those that he or she is learning, perfecting at the same time the acquisition method. The acquisition of a language happens through the formation and verification or falsification of hypotheses conjectured for the functioning or grammaticality of the language that we are learning. These hypotheses must not be imposed by the teacher, but they must be spontaneous, driving the student to think in order to achieve the solution. This is the key of intercomprehension. Up to 6 years, children's brain can grasp a great deal of information, especially those concerning languages. So, it would be better to teach a language to a child before 6 years, since his brain is more receptive. Didactic games are valid tools to teach a language by creating at the same time the motivation for a funny learning. During didactic games, we could associate the target language to a funny activity, such as watching cartoons in English. Help him to understand what activities he or she could carry out thanks to the language knowledge. If the child is fond of aeroplanes, for example, we could tell him that all pilots speak English in order to motivate him to learn this language. In order to create motivation, we need to understand the child. We need to understand what he or she likes and what he or she does not like. We need to talk with the child to understand his or her feelings and his or her problems in order to be able to sort them out. MOMO method, emotional learning, emotional teaching, is an example of didactic games. It was developed by Elisabetta von Winkel and next modified, improved, enriched and colored by children. The purpose of this method is that of teaching a foreign language by taking into account the concept of visual routine. Images of 420 words and 140 actions, called also primary rings, are showed to children through photos. Thanks to the repetitiveness and the cyclicity of the presentation, these images, or primary rings, are stored in the children's brain. Children's brain can memorize an infinity of primary rings, and the emotional experience of a game and the elaboration that he or she will create by following classroom activities facilitates the detachment process of the image from the paper to be stored in the child's brain as a concrete and tangible image and as lexis at his or her disposal for descriptions, dialogues and role games. For a full immersion in the language, summer camps are very useful. Summer camps are destined to all children and young people aged less than 15 years. The purpose is that of carrying out some activities in foreign language and make children and youngsters want to speak constantly in this language thanks to mother tongue tutors. Among the different activities on offer, we have some group activities with open-air lessons which will turn the natural curiosity of children into a perfect occasion to improve and practice the language they are learning. Today in the school, the communicative language teaching method is used to teach languages. This method was developed in 1970s in opposition to the previous teaching models, which were mainly based on grammar and model sentences without taking into account the practical use of languages. CLT method highlights the capacity for conveying the message taking into account its meaning, instead of focusing exclusively on grammatical perfection or on phonetic. The language learning process is interactive, cooperative, and focused on the student, but this method is not just a conversation-based approach. This method is especially used in the interpreting and the translation schools, since both for an interpreter and for a translator it is important to be able to use a language in a practical way. The fundamental elements of all techniques concerning the acquisition of a language are the curiosity, motivation, and amusement, and the lack of one of these important elements compromises its acquisition. These techniques are very useful especially for children who do not love reading boring grammar books, but have minds ready to memorize any figure we give them. We can assert furthermore that acquisition is not equivalent to boredom or hard study. Learning could be much more. It could be amusement, curiosity, creativity, music, without forgetting the practical use of a language. A language is not just codes and grammar, but it is the tool that allows people to express their opinions, ideas, and feelings.